Entering the Mayo Experience.
Mayo Experience. Mayo Experience. Mayo Experience. Experience.
Welcome to the Pat Mayo Experience, presented by DraftKings 2021 Valero Texas Open DraftKings picks and preview with Ben Rasa from awesemo.com. If you're looking for Masters first look pricing info, check out Mayo Media Network for the video, or daily fantasy sports picks and bets The Mix, a very short show, will be up on that podcast feed breaking down our initial reactions to the Masters DraftKings pricing. But while you're here, rate and review the Pat Mayo Experience audio podcast. You want to get into a draw for a couple giveaways for $100 American straight cash, or maybe some Masters swag. I'm going to be posting the pictures up there, but you got to join the newsletter. Takes 5 seconds in the description of this video and pod, just like the Listeners League link for the Valero Texas Open. If you subscribe to the Mayo Media Network newsletter, you'll be in the draw to win some Masters swag, $100. We'll have tons of promotions up there as well. So please support the channel by subscribing to the network on YouTube, smashing the like, and joining that mailing list. No spam, I promise. And if you did sign it and you haven't got one yet, give it till Wednesday and then check your spam folder to see if it is in there. FantasyNational.com/Mayo. Get you 20% off at FantasyNational.com with Valero and Masters next week. If you wait till Wednesday and you want to test it out, just get the weekly on a Wednesday, take you Wednesday to Wednesday, and boom, you get both tournaments for the price of one weekly membership. And with the 20% off, it's $7. So you might as well try that out if you're thinking about joining FantasyNational.com. As I mentioned, Ben Rasa is on the line from awesemo.com. The most hectic time of year for you. I was happy to find out you didn't even know Masters pricing had come out yet.
I didn't. This just shows where I've been. I've been college basketball world. I shouldn't be in this world, but I love to bet World Cup qualifiers. So I've been in the soccer world, golf world, but I did not know Masters pricing is released. That's very exciting.
Yeah, so we're going to get your complete fresh look at it on that other show, so be on the lookout for that. Once again, daily fantasy sports picks and bets. The Mix is where that audio will be. You can hit the description and find the links to that if you want to subscribe. Brand new content every single day up there, and always the video is going to be up on Mayo Media Network. Let's jump into the course. It's funny that when a course is completely out of the rotation for a year, you forget about it. Completely. And then I went back and watched old YouTube posts oh yeah, this course, TPC San Antonio, almost 7,500 yards. Par fives are super long and probably unreachable in two. I think that the going for the green percentage and actually landing on the green is 9%, one of the lowest on the PGA Tour. Generally, it's around 22%. So it occurred back into my mind. I didn't think about this when I was doing the first look show, but why does Ryan Moore and Siwoo Kim, why do these guys always play well at this course? Well, they're 3-shot par fives, basically. Are you good from 100 to 125 yards and can make birdies from there? Then you're going to dominate these par fives. So I went back and threw those proximity ranges in the model, and I think that's what I'm going to hunker down on. That plus driving distance is the way that I'm going this week.
Yeah, there is something to that. Zach Johnson comes to mind. There's several guys on tour that they always play basically any par five with a different formula, and when there's eagles all around, it's not like they can't compete, but they're at such a disadvantage, in terms of raw scoring. Here, it's the opposite. They have the advantage. This is how they naturally play these par fives. You get a bunch of them. So I don't think it's any coincidence that those type of ball strikers, those guys who are deadly with the short irons, tend to do good here at, TPC San Antonio.
So what are we thinking for lineup construction? Because if we look at the 10Ks, Dustin was actually a pretty good value at 11.8 before he withdrew. So that leaves Finau as the highest price guy at 11,000. Spieth is 10.7. Scheffler is 10.4. Hideki is 10.1. And that's it, above $10,000. I'm only going to play one of these guys. And can you guess who that's going to be?
Jordan Spieth.
Hideki. Because no one is using Hideki this week.
Yeah, that's normally what I would say. That's true. No one is using Hideki. The other guys, so let me ask you this. Do you think people are going to use Finau? Because I agree. Hideki of these four will be the lowest owned. But what do you think was going to happen with Finau?
If Dustin was in, I think you'd actually get a discount on Finau's ownership. But where Dustin is not in, I think a lot of people will look at this pricing, and you can do a balance build super easily with these names and the 94, 9,400, 8,500. But those are all the same guy. I think there's a pretty clear separation between Finau, Spieth, Scheffler, and almost everyone else, with Hideki on a little island by himself. So I do think that Finau is going to garner a lot of ownership. I think him and Scheffler will be somewhat comparable. And then like Spieth will be more owned than both of them. And then Hideki will be like 5%.
Yeah, that seems reasonable. I mean, Decky, I don't know. The irons, at least, it used to be that the putter is so cold and he's still a great ball striker. Then that kind of went away when he really started struggling. Lately, it's crept back. He's had pretty sizable, strokes gained with the approach over the last 3 events. I'm not worried about the match play, but that is encouraging. He's certainly going to be the lowest owned. And if you do click him, you're saving. So you could go pretty balanced starting with him, or just omitting all of them and starting in the 9s.
I don't have a problem with starting in the 9s at this event. Then he has to fade one of the top 4 guys actually winning, which, if you just calculate all the win equity that goes into it, I mean, they're more likely to not win than win if you ran this tournament X amount of times, although they are the clear favorites overall. The one things that I like about Hideki, you kind of hit on it, like the irons has still been okay, but the short irons in particular have actually been really good. So the past 24 rounds, Hideki's second in the field in proximity from 125 to 150. He's 26th from 100 to 125. And that puts him in a range with guys who you would normally like, who do well in both facets, like Corey Connors does well in both. Ryan Palmer does well at both. Ryan Moore does well at both. Kadira actually does well in both too. Chris Kirk, like those type of players who I would have projected to play well this week. Not Kadira so much, but the rest of the guys I do. So why not throw Hideki into that mix?
Yeah, I mean, listen, it doesn't take me much to go to Hideki. It's interesting. You talked about these 4 guys, and of course, it's not to say that they can't win or they won't win, but most of them are kind of on a notable drought right now, winning golf tournaments, which is kind of ironic. You've got a lot of firepower up there, but not exactly guys that close the deal too often lately.
No, and if you do get a shot with Hideki here, and maybe he won't be as low owned as I think, people kind of talk themselves into him, but I just see all of the other popular names around him and just be like, who's clicking on Hideki this week? That's how I'm going to roll the dice. That, I'll go like, I'll play 20 lineups. I'll have 7 of them with Hideki, and hopefully he can come first or second. That's going to be like the goal this week.
Listen, I mean, in tournaments like this where, DJ being out is flattened pricing, and I don't think there's a huge difference between these guys. You're going to get a significant ownership discount now. Spieth is certainly playing a lot better. Scheffler, these guys are Texans too. They're going to get that artificial bump. I think it does help though. So I get starting there. I mean, I'm certainly going to get over on Decky, but that's more a product of, I think, people not liking him than me being in love with him. But you know what? That's leverage, and that's easy leverage.
In the 9Ks, all these guys are going to be super owned except for Matt Kuchar. That's my just straightforward analysis on it. Connors and Hoffman especially, but Answer and Tringali and Palmer are all going to garner a ton of ownership as well. I particularly like Answer because I do every week because I'm a sucker. I like Tringali a lot. He was I bet him to win. He's my pick to win. And I like Ryan Palmer probably next out of them. But I think that you can make a very valid case for anyone in this range. Kuchar's especially interesting because finally he has one good week. His irons were actually firing at concession as well. He just had a bad week there. But again, if we're just going to be talking about like, wedges and short irons, that's kind of Kuchar's game.
Yeah, I don't know. My life was a lot easier when he was irrelevant. I mean, he's played his course a ton. He always seems to play well, but I don't know if I guess lately he's kind of showed that maybe that's still that same player. I tend to think the opportunity cost is too big because I have interest in pretty much the entire range. Answer is probably my favorite play on the entire board. I already bet him. Irons have been fantastic. He's a Texas guy, ball striking, really everything besides the putter right now checks out for me. So I'm going to look to Answer. He's a great starting point. He's an aggressive second man in. Pretty much fits every build that I want to make.
That's generally how I was going to start my lineups as well. Hideki, Answer, Hideki, Tringali, Answer, Tringali, with a mix of Ryan Palmer in there too. And that means I probably don't end up getting to Connors or Hoffman, who Paul said in his model were the 2 highest rated guys. So that terrifies me because he won all the money here last time. But you're going to have to make your choices. Like if you told me that Brendan Steele won this event, I'm not going to be super stunned. Like this entire range feels like the same guy. I think that Answer and Connors and Palmer are like a cut above the rest of them, but not significantly so. Like they're closer to this range, like in the bottom end of the 9s, than they are to Scheffler, Spieth, and Finau.
Oh, yeah, I definitely agree with that. I mean, little things, maybe a wave stack, ownership, they'll tell the tale. Charlie Hoffman's someone that I'm going to try to get. Again, the irons have been on fire. Now that he doesn't withdraw, works wonders for him. So it's just a range that it is a lot of similar players and guys that feel maybe a little overpriced as a product of most people already being at Augusta, of course. So you could start with 2 or even 3 of these guys if you wanted to be very aggressive.
Are you going to be looking into the win stack? Obviously, I'm going to have my update on Wednesday, live chat at noon on Mayo Media Network, up on the pod feed afterwards, and I'll try to hammer down on that. But that's still noon, the day before the event. The stuff always changes. I'm looking at the win finder right now, and basically what I'm seeing is that early Thursday, gusts up to 35 miles per hour. That sounds like fun.
Yeah, that could be an issue. So yeah, I probably will. And I tend to, naturally, if there looks like there's going to be a problem Thursday morning in particular, I'll give that a lot more, weight than if they say like, well, Friday afternoon is going to be a shit show, because by the time it locks, we still have 48 hours till we get there. Thursday, I can see only a couple hours before the tee times what it looks like. So if it's going to be a problem Thursday morning, I probably will build accordingly. It doesn't mean I'm omitting those guys, but they're certainly going to get a bump down.
Has this tournament skewed the way that we think about stacks in terms of the wind in early AM, PM, PM, AM type of deals? Just because that one year, 2015, that it was so pronounced that if you just blindly took the other side of the stack, not the one that I think Dustin and Ortiz were 2 of the guys that were in the bad stack that ended up finishing well. But if you just blindly taken players from the PM stack, you would have won all the money.
There are elements, of course. The Open is the one that seemingly every year there's like a massive stack, and then it always works the other way somehow. Listen, this is a course that wind plays a large role. We've seen it time and time again. It can happen. I don't think you want to go crazy. Like if you love like Hideki, I don't really care where he plays. I have a preference, of course, but him and Answer and guys that I want to target, I'm not going to just say, oh, can't play him now. I just will work it accordingly, try to make sure that they check out the proper lineups.
In the 8Ks, I'll probably actually, in terms of the AM, PM, if I do see that there's a split, I'll probably just throw in some PM, AMs if the wind's going to be in the morning and hope to get lucky that way. But in the 8K range, we're seeing something very similar like we saw in the 9Ks where everyone's gravitating towards 5 guys. But then there's a couple names that just people are staying away from. So Cam Davis, Lonto, Chris Kirk, Keegan Bradley, and even Zach Johnson to a lesser extent, all project out inside the double digits, then no one's going to own Hadwin, Damon, or Fowler.
Yeah, Hadwin is someone that I don't know what to make of him. He's just out of control with the short game. It seems unsustainable, but it's sustainable. Maybe it'll eventually smooth out. It usually does. The irons have to be better, but he's kind of an interesting target. I get why people are going to Chris Kirk, Zach Johnson. We kind of talked at the top of the show. They do a lot of things that I think is important here. You don't think people will go to Ricky thinking that he just got to win so he can get to Augusta?
Potentially. I think that's more of a public play. I think that anyone that generally plays on DraftKings is probably not using Ricky.
Yeah, even I'm not. I may have a little, but it's just not happening right now. And you can't win with his strategy of losing a ball or 2 around. It's impossible. So, and then Joel Damon, coming off the win, I tend not to play guys that have a breakthrough like that. So I get that ownership won't be there, but I probably won't either.
So I like Davis, Kirk, and Keegan Bradley. I also bet all 3 of those guys to win this week as well. So it sounds like our cards are pretty much the same. I didn't bet Hideki, but I have Answer, Tringali, Kirk, Davis, and Keegan, and Brendan Grace. Those are the bets.
Yeah, I'm going to be in line with that. It's interesting. So Cam Davis and Keegan are interesting, especially together. They're the same type of, if you're weighing off the tee a little heavier, you can go to those type of guys. You hope that they don't get eaten up by the short game. Obviously, that could be a factor. It's just all about building the right type of team. But yeah, I don't know. Dahmen is interesting. I would love to go there. Coming off a win like that is always tough for me.
And then Sam Burns at 8K. And your boy, Aaron Wise. No one's using that guy either. But Burns is... It feels like everyone wants to play Burns. Everyone wants to bet Burns. But after the recent results, it's I don't know about this so much.
Yeah, his spot, of course, at API everyone, including me, was saying, "Oh, here he comes, Bermuda. This is his time." Not his time, apparently. I don't know. I mean, he's another one though. I kind of like the strategy. If you're going to play guys like Cam Davis, or you're going to play Keegan, I don't think it's that big a stretch to go to someone like Sam Burns, who again off the tee is a strength, can lean on him. Wise is probably harder for me because he's showing a little signs. I tend to think, again, the coastal thing with him is real. There's no doubt in my mind. I don't know if this exactly is what I want, but it is nice to see him flip the putter finally.
Yeah, past 24 rounds, he's 19th off the tee in this field. He's actually 5th from 100 to 125 as well, and plays these long par threes over 200 yards really well too. He is 27th in the field from 200 to 225. So there's outlier numbers for him that point to his success, except when you play him, he 4-putts from 3 feet, and you're like, oh, that's not great.
Yep, that's really where the problems have come in from him. I don't know, like, because in theory that would be encouraging, because it's like, all right, well, you clean that up, and that's something that shouldn't happen. The results aren't as bad as they seem, but it's kind of, I'm not gonna say it's like Ricky in the sense, but it's just always something with him. It was good to see at Honda him at least hang in there, and I mean, he fell down the board, but he still held on for a top 20, which is a huge improvement. I'd rather play Burns. I'd certainly rather play Ryan Moore. The problem is a lot of people are going to play Ryan Moore, it would seem.
Yeah, it looks like Ryan Moore and Harold Varner in these upper sevens are where people are turning to, and I can't really fault them. I think that both those guys rate out really well. I like Harold Varner in the wind, and it feels like he's kind of getting it back together a little bit. His season has been very underrated so far. I think it's just, you're used to seeing, oh, there's Harold Varner. He's first round leader. He's not doing that anymore, but he's making cuts. The ball striking is really good. He's not making putts. He's kind of what Harold Varner does well.
Yeah, and he scores. Like, I know this isn't a week where streaks and bonuses are going to be flying off the shelves, but he's still a good scorer, usually outscores his placement. And this is just a course that I tend to weigh course history a little more than other courses. I think there's something to it. It's more technical. I like to see that guys, I feel like if you play well here, you tend to play well more often than some other tracks that are a little more erratic.
Is there anyone else in the sevens that you like? Because I like Grace. He's $7,800. Outside of a few just really horrendous approach shots on par fives at the Players, like that's where his week went south. He actually played pretty well before that. He won Puerto Rico. It seems like he's turning back into Brendan Grace. And the last 2 years that he's played here, he's finished inside the top 10. So I like him. Other than that, I got Johnny at 74, the Gim Reaper at 73, and Cameron Champ at $7,000, and Higgs at 71.
What about Johnny Vegas?
I should like Vegas a lot, but I can just never get there with him, especially at $7,400. Like, that's a lot for Johnny Vegas, who just hasn't been playing well.
So that it is a lot, but for me, Vegas is one of those players. I actually kind of like him when he's overpriced, especially in a field like this, because the upside to me is pretty big. He showed form. Now Corrales is Corrales, but he was fine. He does some things that I think correlate better than it would seem. He's a Texas guy. 74, I'll probably put him in the pool. And then you've got, so you got EVR and Benyon at 75. I don't know exactly what to do with either of them, I'll be honest. EVR is impossible. I mean, he in the South African ranks may be above Louis at this point for just, it's really difficult for me to gauge, but I still find myself at least interested.
Well, there are two guys kind of around him. EVR did enough for me last week. That was nice of him to win his group at plus 425, so we can just move on from that. But it's Woodland and Putnam, because Putnam all of a sudden is turning back into Putnam, who was on that like really good streak 2 years ago. So he came 7th in Phoenix. He was 5th in Puerto Rico. He was 4th at API. He missed the cut at the Masters or at the Players, but that was largely due to a really poor putting performance. The irons have been erratic, but it's been good some weeks. The putting can be really good for him. Don't know what to make of him. He seems wildly overpriced, but he has a top 10 at this course. He's made the cut each of the past 2 turns that he's played it, and it seems like he's coming back into form. And then you have Woodland, who talent-wise is just better than all these guys, but who knows where he's at.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is where you're going to have to start crafting your teams accordingly. Like, Putnam is the type of guy I would only consider him maybe with like had win types, or if you think that it's going to be, if you can get away with off the tee being weak, got to make some putts. then you've got the other side of it, like the Keegan, Johnny Vegas, Cam Davis. I guess you could put EVR in there, those types. I think you got to separate them a little. And then I'm with you, Doug Gim. He's just someone I think you can go to. No problem there. Johnny, maybe I'll look at this guy again.
He does what I like in terms of 3-shot par 5s. He's very good with his wedges. Can be a shitty putter, but who can't? But he hits a lot of fairways. So you can kind of go one or two ways at this course. Like the Bombers, if you keep it out of the woods, and there's not a ton of woods, but you can go OB pretty quickly here and make some crooked numbers, that you do want the guys who can really bomb it. But the other way you can do it too is kind of plot around the course, keep it in the middle of the fairway. Like when I see like Charlie Hoffman and Andrew Landry and Corey Connors are all winners here, like they all kind of do the same thing off the tee. They have like average to slightly above average length, but they hit a ton of fairways, kind of like Keegan in a weird way. And then just from there, they can let their wedges take over. So if you're going to target that sort of player, you need someone who's good from like 150 and in. And Hunt is good from 150 and in.
What do you think about Bernd Wiesberger? Like,
there's him, Adam Long, and Gim. I think, like, talent-wise, we're looking at really good players in this lower 7. But I just don't know where Bernd is at. Like, every once in a while, he's Bernd Wiesberger that we know from the European Tour. He shows up in one of these events and just starts reeling off birdies like he does. And other times, he's like +9 after 2 holes.
Yeah, that's again where the issue comes at. He's just someone, when he gets going, I kind of conceptually, this is the type of track, keep it in the fairway, lean on, short irons. He can do it. He's got to make some putts, no doubt. He's not a strong off the tee player, but he can mitigate it by just, you don't need to overpower this course, nor do I think you really can, to be honest. So his game has been tough. I've tried to take some chances with him in the recent weeks. It hasn't really worked to any large extent. I think in this field, though, 72 is a pretty generous tag, even with the recent form.
The irons have been good for him at API and the players. The driving has been really poor, but that's also hard to judge. Like, you almost have to take some of the driving.
When you're in the water.
Yeah, when you're at the water. But like, this course has the 3rd most triple bogeys of any course since 2010, behind Honda and the players. And this course basically has no water. So it's really tough when we're trying to figure and like parse through where he's at. Maybe you just look at world ranking and be like, hey, he's one of the best players in this field. Just use him at this really cheap price tag. Like, that logically does make sense to me.
Yeah, again, I don't think you can't blindly do that. That's how you end up with Noren for like 3 years like I did.
Or you end up betting Lucas Herbert at Corrales like I did.
Yeah, I mean, but there's something to that. I still believe in these, average to below average fields. You can go to some of these Euros. This guy's got a lot of experience, certainly in adverse conditions. He's played enough over here where this isn't some strange test. I feel okay about that. I'm not running to the window, but he's going to be in the pool. And I think, Kazire, KH Lee, Seifert, like, it's not that big of a justification for playing Wiesberger over them.
Well, he's 7,200. You might have talked me into playing him both on DraftKings. I saw he was 150 to 1 to win this tournament, which seems really long for him.
Yeah, that's really long. So I didn't know that.
So maybe I'll fire on that as well. So you've talked me into feel the Bernd Wiesberger. Higgs is going to be super highly owned, and I kind of like it.
Yeah, I mean, he's another one. Just A, he's awesome. B, the irons have been fantastic. He outscores his placement, and now we're getting into the, you make the cut here. How bad could it really be? So 71, him and Champ, I totally get that. What happened to your boy Luke List? A little vertigo action I saw?
Yeah, I think that's going to keep me off of him. I think that's what it was. Someone tweeted that at me. I didn't actually see any sort of follow-up on it, but, coming off a withdrawal in Puerto Rico, that's tough.
Yeah, it's not great. He will be, I would assume, virtually unowned, which is kind of interesting, but it feels a little unnecessary. I'll tell you, I looked and I bet this guy last week. He didn't win, of course, but Bryce Garnett is someone I looked at. He's more of like a coastal, Puerto Rico type player, but flat 7 for him. He does some things that I like, can get hot with the putter. I just don't know exactly where he's at. Even it almost feels like this is a step up in some of the fields he's been playing in.
I actually bet him head-to-head versus Ricky with Jeff at Honda. And Bryce Garnett, the champion of that head-to-head. Yeah, he's been good the past 2 weeks, but I feel like there's just certain courses where you play Bryce Garnett. Like you play him in the alternate events, you play him at Honda, you play him at Mayakoba, and that's basically it.
Yeah, it's true. And that's where I think this applies almost to this course, not with him, but to me, there are some guys like that here. And that's why they're going to be very popular.
Champ is the one that I do like solely for upside purposes. I actually think Garnett probably has a better chance to make the cut than Cameron Champ does. But if we're going to be talking about, hey, who's a 7K guy who can win? Cameron Champ's the answer to that question.
I mean, we've seen this already time and time again. Right now he's maybe the worst putter on tour, but in theory and historically from what we've seen, he can get hot with the putter. It happens occasionally. When you combine that with what he does, his unique skill set, A, it results in massive scoring, and B, it results in massive upside. Now the game is in shambles. He's definitely more live to miss the cut than most around here, but I would agree his top 10 equity, his top 5 equity, probably higher. And for you're trying to beat 100,000 people, you got to do something. That's one way to do it.
I think he's more, of a giant GPP play than a single entry type play.
Totally agree. I think you're incurring a lot of, I would say, unnecessary risk in small fields with him. He's just very live to lose 4 or 5 strokes putting in 2 games, and that's a quick exit.
Oh, let me see this. I didn't even see this. TPC San Antonio Championship at the Oaks, which I assume is either this course or one of them that's on this property, was on the Corn Ferry Tour last year. I was just looking at Grayson Sigg. I'm all in on that name, obviously.
Of course.
So I'm trying to see who is in that field. Oh, your boy, Ben Martin, top 10. Did anyone play? No one is really in this field who did anything. Sigg missed the cut at that event. Zalatoris played well. Davis Riley, your boy, he ended up winning that event. Paul Baljean from France was T2.
Yeah, he looked good last week. I bet him in a head-to-head last week. Did not work.
Now, I bet him the one before in Puerto Rico. He made the cup. That was about all he did. 6K guys, I don't know if I'm going to play him, but Nick Taylor weirdly rated out well for me. I like Will Gordon a lot. $6,800. He's got the driving distance. I think he can score a ton. Sloan and Landry I have on a short list. I like Batia at $6,400 and Hammer and Hank Lebioda, the bod, $6,200. Sneaky playing okay right now.
Saw that price. I mean, that price is just, there's no difference to me between him and the guys in the upper sixes. So I don't mind that, to be honest. It's, you're incurring risk, of course, but you're incurring risk with everybody here. What about Scott Stallings? He's not playing great, but the irons have been good. He's missing cuts at pretty good tournaments. I feel that he's going to make this weekend at 6,600. I don't mind it.
I can see it. Whatever happened to Doc Redman?
Yeah, him and Sam Burns were the same person until they weren't. I don't know.
Ben Martin is in this field.
Oh, I know. Ben Martin is not the craziest idea. It's close to the craziest idea, but he played good at Corrales. You mentioned something that I don't even know what it meant, but it seemed good about Ben Martin playing well here. I don't think it's that crazy. I mean, these guys, they only have a handful of starts. And again, this is a course seems to respond to his game. Now the form, it's a step up from what he's been doing. And historically in this event, it doesn't seem good, but he is Bermuda Benny. There's not much down here. I think if you're going to take some flyers, you could at least consider him.
Trying to see how Lebioda has played. He has a 17th at Valero in 2019. His decent start, didn't gain strokes putting, but he never gained strokes putting. That's really been his Achilles heel lately. He made the cut at Pebble because he was able to putt that week. Everything else, good irons, decent driving, just big time loser in around the green and in strokes gained putting. But $6,200 just seems really cheap. And if you do want to, pile in, start with Hideki, go with Answer, go with Tringali, at $6,200, that would open up. I actually think Batia is the better play at 64 though, because just looking at some of the players that have done well at this course, they also do really well at Safeway. And that's where Batia had his best career finish, had a top 10 there.
Interesting. Yeah. I mean, I will say if the sixes is interesting this week in the sense, there's actually some pretty appealing names up and down the pricing of it. God, I wanted to go to Kramer Hickok, but he's really fallen off a cliff. he had a little run at the end there of 2020, and now no dice.
What about Austin Eckroat?
Yeah, no, that's not it, man. Who the hell is that?
I think he was like a decent amateur. He has one start. He played at Mayakoba and came 12th, and this is his next start.
Isn't that isn't there an actor, the guy who played in the Batman movie? What's his name?
I should
Something
know.
Eckert.
The guy from Thank You for Smoking. Aaron Eckhart.
Aaron, there. Maybe they're related. Who knows?
Let's see here.
What about Tom Lewis? You look at him at all? The random number generator that he is?
No, that's more of a Feinberg guy.
Okay. He was just the only thing that caught my eye at Honda. His irons were really crisp. Then he made another cut, after at Corrales. I'm not saying, I think it's pretty thin, to be honest, but at least his approach game has been ticking upward.
All right. So Eckroat, he's an amateur. He missed the cut at the 2019 U.S. Open and came T12 at Mayakoba. That's it. That's all I got on him.
Yeah, I mean, he's like minus 10,000 to not have a pitcher on DraftKings.
Or to have like John Huh's headshot, because John Huh like populates people. Him, for whatever reason, like the Asian golfers, if you're of Asian descent, you just weirdly get populated into the DraftKings system underneath other players.
Yeah, this guy faceless. He is next to Wesley Bryan is there. Bo Hostler, that's a no. Glickich, there's just not a lot down here. Stenson. I
totally forgot about Stenson.
Can you believe he's just chilling with Christoph Ventura now?
Ventura, I bet Ventura as first round leader. I think he does enough of the right things that you want at this course to like potentially be a first round leader. I don't know if he can hold it together, but he does seem like someone with talent, doesn't he?
I mean, he definitely, Oklahoma State guy, aggressive. There was a time not that long ago that I thought Cam Davis's game was very similar to his, and this is what happens. These guys, they find form and they can catapult up. So I get it there. Obviously, the recent form,
good.
It's not good, but he makes a lot of putts, it seems. Again, showdown, maybe something like that. Not bad. Sneds is also in this field.
Is he he's not in the Masters, is he?
Snedeker? I didn't think so, but I haven't even looked at the pricing.
Yeah, I don't think that he's in the Masters, but
how would he be in?
Who knows? Like maybe some like weird top 10 somewhere, like every once a year at this point, like he'll pop up and have a super hot putting week. What happened to Snedeker?
Yeah, I don't know now. Like when he did the same thing, he used to hit it onto the rocks and then it would be a highlight because he'd make birdie. Now he makes double and no one cares. His off the tee game, of course, has always been weak, but he doesn't make up for it with really anything now. This guy's not in the field, but speaking of what happened to Bud Cauley?
He got hurt. I think he was in a car accident, maybe? No, I don't think he ever came back from the injury, did he?
I thought he was back.
I think he came back and then he was still hurt, so he went back on like medical leave.
See, I thought he got COVID.
Oh, maybe he did.
And then just no more Bud. Like it's hard. I'm not used to filling out 6 golfers every week because like my lineups, I just play him. But now it's a whole new 2021 for me. He's not played in months though, I don't think.
This tournament seems like such a crapshoot, and all the chalk is congregating all in the exact same places. Like, what do you do in a week like that? Like, do you try to find 1 or 2 spots to pivot and just kind of ride the chalk, or what do we do here? Because we know that some of it is going to be good.
Absolutely. So I think it's totally misguided to fade the chalk like that. What I kind of do is the way I do it with lineups like this is I build what I would say is a cash lineup. And then depending on how risky I want to go, I'll 2v2 it. I'll 3v3 it. Maybe I'll even 4v4. Like I build it as if like, here's the most vanilla foundation. And now how can I change it up? Where can I leverage? How can I be unique? Can I take 2 guys out and make a wave stack? Can I take 3 guys out and make a bomber heavy stack? But I always want to maintain some solid ownership because those guys are most likely to at least make the cut and play pretty well.
Yeah, just looking at it right now, too, if you do start, let's say you just start your lineups with, I mean, if you start with Hideki, you're going to get an ownership break regardless because few people are just starting their lineups with Hideki. But Answer is going to be highly owned. Answer and Connors are both going to be highly owned. But if you started your lineups with one of those guys, it probably doesn't make a difference because, you know, the types of people that are, most people are going to start with one of the $10,000 guys straight up. So if you start in the 9s, you're probably going to be pretty unique as it is.
Oh, no doubt. I mean, there's a lot of ways to do it. And that's the other part. I say this a lot, but I strongly believe it. It's not the players themselves. It's the lineup itself. Like, you can have some chalky players, but if you do something that's really odd with them, well, that'll work. And even leaving some money on the table, like you could have a lot of chalk and have it land on an awkward number. It's probably okay. I'm not saying it's the best strategy, but there's a lot of ways to do it. And in a field like this, it's wide open for the bottom half to make a serious impact in terms of placement points.
All right, that will do it on the Pat Mayo Experience 2021 Valero Texas Open DraftKings picks and preview. Noon Eastern time on Mayo Media Network. Wednesday, a final betting card. Although now I just added Wiesberger to it. I have way too many fucking bets this week.
That's right.
They're all like, I think the shortest number, actually I ended up betting Answer right when DJ withdrew. Because I was like, oh, I'll catch a decent number on him. Although he didn't follow that far. He's still like 22 or 20. I got the 25. But, you know, I've been betting Answer anyway. I might as well just keep fucking riding the train to Loserville with him. But everyone else is like 40, 50, 60. So hopefully one of these bombs can come through and Spieth just doesn't run away with it. Does it feel like a week where one of the bigger names wins? Or is it like classic Valero where rising good for mid-tier golfer wins?
To me, and again, of course, this is just a hunch, it feels like rising mid-tier. I always think, and this is probably just me thinking this, that these guys, even if it's subconsciously, work on things that they are going to need next week more than, I'm not saying they're not trying to win, but it's just, there's so many scenarios where they're not in contention or they start slow and it's just like, okay, let me get some good reps in. Whereas, you know, for someone in the mid-tier, this is a career changer. And that's just not the case for the first 4 guys on this list.
If you want to check out the Masters early pricing preview, tune in to Mayo Media Network for the video. Or if you want the audio podcast, Daily Fantasy Sports Picks and Bets, The Mix, I'll drop that into the description along with the Listeners League link for the weeks. Please go fill that up so we can have a giant one for the Masters. The MLB package at ftndaily.com is up right now. If you use code Mayo, you get 20% off for the year. So it's all of the tools plus the optimizer plus all the content for $200 all baseball season with code Mayo if you put it in for the 20% off right now till April 4th. So highly suggest you do that. And fantasynational.com/Mayo, also 20% off if you want to get in on the golf game. Thank you all for watching. I'm Pat Mayo. I'll see you next time.
Pat Mayo Experience! Experience!